All right, everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving headfirst into some pretty heavy stuff.
Definitely heavy stuff.
We're talking about a potential second term for Donald Trump as president,
And what that could mean.
especially, yeah, for the entire world. I mean, his first term was America First, and
This time he's got concrete plans. Like, we're not talking campaign promises.
oh, yeah, this is way beyond that.
We've seen executive orders that are already in the works. We've got insights from his inner circle.
And so we're getting a much clearer picture.
We really are of what a Trump 2.0 administration could actually look like.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Immigration. That's a big one.
Huge.
Complete overhaul is what he's promising.
Well, his press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, said it's going to be the largest mass deportation of illegal immigrants in American history.
Wow, that's a pretty big statement.
That's a big statement.
So what does that actually mean?
Well, we're probably going to see the Remain in Mexico policy come back.
Right. So asylum seekers would have to wait in Mexico.
While their cases are processed in the U.S.,
And he's talked about ending birthright citizenship,
which means anyone born on U.S. soil.
automatically a citizen.
Right, automatically a citizen.
But that's in the Constitution.
That would be a massive legal battle.
The
Monumental.
logistics of mass deportation alone.
Mind-boggling. Where do you even start?
Exactly. It'd be a huge undertaking.
Enormous. You'd need so many resources, so much manpower. And the legal challenges.
Every step of the way.
Absolutely every step.
Okay. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about the economy.
All right.
Trump's approach to economics has always been a little,
Unconventional.
unconventional.
Tariffs.
Tariffs are his thing.
He loves them.
Yeah, he loves them.
So he's proposing a 10% universal tariff
On everything.
on all imports coming into the U.S. Everything. And
And for China?
60%.
60% tax on their goods.
Wow. That's a big one
He's even mentioned possibly tariffs on Mexico and Canada.
if they don't cooperate. On things like border security or drug trafficking.
That's the really aggressive America First stance.
It really is. And a lot of economists are worried.
I bet they are.
It's a huge departure from free trade policies.
What could it do to global trade?
Well, you could see disrupted supply chains, increased prices for consumers.
Makes sense. And what if other countries retaliate?
Exactly. It's a gamble, a high-stakes one for sure, with potentially global consequences,
It's not just trade either. Energy's another big area.
where he differs from the current administration.
Oh yeah, big time.
The world is moving towards renewable energy,
And Trump is all about
fossil fuels.
drilling.
Exactly. He wants to expedite oil drilling, fracking, all that.
So what does that mean for climate change?
Not good. It puts the U.S. on a totally different path.
Than the rest of the world.
Yeah. A collision course, really, with global efforts to combat climate change.
There are economic implications too.
Right.
I mean, people are investing in renewables.
Billions. Investors are pouring billions into renewable energy.
What happens to those investments if we suddenly switch back to fossil fuels?
It's a big risk. It could disrupt markets, create uncertainty,
And what about those investments?
potentially stranded. And is it a good bet anyway? A lot of experts say fossil fuels have a limited future.
So is the U.S. going to be left behind?
That's the big question.
All right. What about regulations?
He wants to roll back a lot of the environmental protections.
The ones that were put in place by the current administration.
Yes. He says they're stifling economic growth.
But what about the environment?
And public health.
Exactly. I mean,
For
those are major concerns.
air quality, water quality, years of progress could be undone.
And he's not happy with the Securities and Exchange Commission
The SEC, yeah. Specifically the chairman, Gary Gensler.
because he's been pushing for stricter climate disclosure rules.
For businesses.
Right. So investors know the risks.
The climate risks associated with their investments.
But Trump sees those regulations as a burden.
Unnecessary. Burdensome.
Let's not forget family planning,
Title X.
the federal program that funds family planning services.
He's planning to target that.
So it's not just about the funding.
No. He wants to restrict funding
For organizations.
that provide or refer patients for abortions.
So it's about access
Access to reproductive health care.
for millions of women.
Exactly.
We've covered a lot. Immigration, the economy, energy.
Regulations, family planning.
And it's clear a second Trump term. It wouldn't be business as usual.
Not at all. It would be a seismic shift with potential
To
implications.
every corner of American life.
And don't forget, we're talking about a global superpower here.
What happens in the U.S. affects the whole world.
Absolutely. Trade, diplomacy, Climate change, international security,
It's all connected.
everything's connected.
And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We're not just looking at domestic policy.
We're looking at the potential ripple effects
Yeah.
that could reshape the global landscape.
So stay with us as we delve deeper into the potential foreign policy shakeups, the legal battles
The global uncertainty.
that lie ahead in a potential Trump 2.0 world.
You know, it's amazing. A decision in the Oval Office could impact a farmer in Argentina or a tech worker in India.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's why this deep dive is so important. If you're interested in global impact,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're talking about the global impact of U.S. policy. And we can't look at these policies in isolation.
No.
We have to look at the bigger picture. What are the potential chain reactions? Speaking of chain reactions, foreign policy.
Oh, yeah.
Trump's America First agenda. It goes way beyond just the economy. It could reshape alliances. It could redefine America's role in the whole world.
For sure. And right away, he said he wants to pull the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Agreement.
So what would that mean for climate change?
It would be a major blow to international efforts. A real signal that the U.S. is putting its own energy interests ahead of global cooperation.
And he wants to rebuild alliances in the Middle East. But his relationship with Israel has always been a little complicated.
Right.
So is unwavering support for Israel realistic?
Right.
Is it even beneficial?
It's tough. It's a tricky balancing act.
Yeah.
When you support one side, you can alienate others.
Right.
And that can create more instability. And the Middle East is so complex.
Oh, it's a web.
Alliances, rivalries, any change in U.S. policy?
Could have huge consequences.
It's huge.
And then there's China. Trump's been very clear. He wants to be tough. He wants to make the U.S. less dependent on China economically.
Yeah, he's talking about revoking their most favored nation trade status.
Which basically is
Preferential treatment in trade deals.
and he wants to restrict Chinese investment in U.S. real estate.
Push for more economic independence.
But that could lead to a trade war
It could.
with the world's second largest economy.
Think about it. Disrupted global supply chains. Prices going up for everyone. Economic instability.
It's risky,
It's a high-stakes game.
and it's all part of his approach to trade. He likes those one-on-one agreements
Bilateral deals.
rather than those big agreements with lots of countries.
The multilateral ones.
He's even talking about renegotiating existing agreements.
Like USMCA.
The trade deal with Mexico and Canada.
Exactly. And Chorus. The one with South Korea.
He really wants to shake things up.
Put America first when it comes to trade. No matter the cost.
And speaking of cost, the war in Ukraine, one of the most pressing issues globally. Trump says he can end it.
In a day.
He wants to talk directly with Zelensky and Putin.
Direct negotiations.
But is that realistic?
A lot of experts are skeptical.
I can see why.
It's a complex conflict. There's so much mistrust.
Right.
And any miscalculation could be disastrous.
And what about U.S. aid to Ukraine?
Trump's been critical of it,
Saying it's making the war last longer.
that it risks escalation.
So he says he can end the war quickly.
Yeah.
But he's also criticizing the support that Ukraine needs to defend itself.
It's a confusing message.
It is. And it's making our allies nervous. It's emboldening Russia. It's hard to know what a Trump foreign policy would look like.
There's a lot of uncertainty.
His America First approach, his unpredictability. He likes to
Right.
challenge the status quo.
It creates a lot of volatility.
And it makes it really tough to know what will happen next.
Absolutely.
That's why this deep dive is so
We're
important.
trying to figure out what could happen. What are the different scenarios?
We also need to talk about the legal landscape surrounding a second Trump term. Because it's going to be interesting.
Oh, yeah. It's going to get really interesting. Pardons for people involved in the January 6th Capitol riot.
Oh, wow.
Investigations into the Justice Department.
Okay.
Trump could even pardon himself.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride.
Let's start with the January 6th pardons.
A very sensitive topic.
It was a serious attack. The violence, the attempt to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power,
A very dark day for American democracy.
and the idea of pardons.
It raises serious questions about accountability, about the rule of law. What message does it send to the world?
Over 1,500 people were arrested.
More than 750 have been sentenced.
These weren't minor offenses. We're talking assault, conspiracy, destruction of property.
Serious crimes.
And Trump has said he might pardon many of them.
He says they were treated unfairly.
But that would just make things worse, politically,
It would inflame tensions, deepen divisions.
for sure. And then there's Special Counsel Jack Smith. He's been investigating Trump.
Right.
Reports say he might resign before Trump takes office.
which would stop Trump from firing him.
That's interesting. It sounds like a strategic move to protect the investigations
To keep them from being derailed.
by a new administration.
That doesn't want him to do his job.
And then the big question, can Trump pardon himself?
For federal crimes?
It's never been done before.
Never. It would set a dangerous precedent.
Yeah, it would put the president above the law.
Exactly. And it would raise a fundamental question. Is anyone truly accountable?
Even the president.
Even the president.
So a second Trump term? It wouldn't just be about policy changes.
It would be much bigger than that.
It would be about ideology.
Yeah.
A battle over the very idea of American democracy.
And it could have a huge impact on the world.
We need to understand the potential global impact, the unintended consequences, the uncertainties.
That's what we're doing here.
We're looking at immigration economics,
Yeah.
foreign policy, legal battles. How does it all fit together?
It creates a tapestry of global change and uncertainty.
We need to look at the risks, the opportunities, the challenges, the choices.
For the U.S. and for the whole world.
We've talked about a lot today. Immigration trade wars, climate change. The war in Ukraine feels like the whole world is just waiting to see what a second Trump term will actually look like.
Like a big poker game, the fate of the world is on the line.
And it's not just policy changes.
No, it's much bigger. It's about how America sees itself in the world.
He's not just changing the system, he's changing the rules of the game.
Exactly. And that's exciting and scary at the same time because the consequences could be enormous.
They really could.
Yeah.
So for everyone listening,
Especially if you're interested in geopolitics, international relations,
this is a time to pay attention, to stay informed.
and maybe be a little worried.
So let's break it all down. What are the key takeaways? What do we need to remember?
Well, first of all, this is not just about American politics.
Right.
This could change everything globally. Trump's America First approach, challenging those old alliances, those norms,
It could have a ripple effect.
everywhere. A butterfly flaps its wings in Washington.
There's a storm on the other side of the world.
That's what we're talking about. What happens in one country?
It affects us all.
Exactly. And secondly, we need to be skeptical.
Don't believe everything you hear.
Right. There's a lot of hype.
A lot of speculation.
Exactly. Do your research. Check your sources. Talk to people who disagree with you.
Challenge your own ideas.
Yes.
Be open to new possibilities, because things might not go the way you think they will.
The future isn't set in stone.
It's up to all of us.
Our choices, our actions, they all shape the future. And that's where you come in, the listener.
Staying informed, having these discussions, participating in the political process, it's more important now than ever.
It really is, because the future depends on what we do today.
So to wrap things up, the world is changing.
And it's changing fast.
A second Trump term could make things even more unpredictable.
More volatile.
It's a time of uncertainty. But it's also a time of opportunity. What we do now
The choices we make.
will determine the course of history. So stay informed.
Stay engaged.
Be ready for a future that no one can predict.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about the deep dive.
We're here to help you understand this crazy world, one fascinating topic at a time. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, keep exploring the world around you.